Welcome back to another episode of Primetime. I've got Nick beside me. We're at an airport lounge in Saudi Arabia. Nick, how's the week treated you in Saudi?
Mate, I've loved it so far. Everyone puts a bad stigma on Saudi Arabia, but it's a lovely place. It's booming. You can see in the next 10 years, 2030 vision, it's going to be a mega city.
Well, the thing is, we were here. We caught a couple of Al Nassr games. The boxing was supposed to be on. Tyson Fury split his eye open. But everything's coming here. The F1's here. The WWE's here. You know, boxing's always here. UFC's coming here in June. It's the place to be for sport. We're going to be here covering the sport regularly.
Hopefully, and I mean, every time you watch Ronaldo play, you feel blessed. The guy is one of the GOATs, and seeing him score twice, not once, but twice, we're very lucky.
And the Al Nassr fans love him.
Oh, they'll do anything.
They do adore him.
They would die for him.
Yeah.
That's how much they love him. And you know what? He deserves that. He deserves that treatment, especially after Man United, the way the elites there treated him.
Well, we got up early morning to watch the Aussies fight on UFC 298. It was disappointing.
It was very disappointing. If you're a Volk fan, you're disgusted.
Immediate reactions after the Volkanovski knockout.
It's disappointing to see, but Topuria called his shot. He told you how the fight was going to go. He didn't get him in the first round, but he got him in the second round and was very convincing. I think if you're Volkanovski, you've been knocked out now twice in your last two fights. You're on a pretty downward slide. And if you're looking at Ilia Topuria, he's 27. He's the young kid, new on the block. The featherweight division's only had 4 champions in their entire history. Now 5, and he looks like another one that could have a long title reign.
I don't know. Volk was playing the old man character all week. You know what I mean? And it looked like he was just outclassed by the younger kid. Ilia Topuria literally said he doesn't respect Volk striking. He's going to go and risk it and go in with long combinations. And did exactly that, and that's what knocked Volk out in the end. He said he doesn't have striking like Josh Emmett, and I'm not scared of his power. I'm not scared of Volk's power. He went in. He said he was going to get in. He said he was going to get it done in 1. He knocked him out in the second round. You got to give respect to the Spaniard.
Yeah, and I mean people.
You know, he said it was his destiny. He was born to be a champion. He spoke it into existence, got it done, and now he almost doesn't want to give Volk a rematch.
Well, all the talk of arrogance before the fight, that he was too arrogant. You know, he's put in his bio 15 and 0. He's making a documentary about his road to the title.
It paid off.
It makes the victory all that much sweeter because he was being arrogant, and when you're being arrogant, you're going to be called out by a lot of haters saying you don't deserve the spot or you're causing too much trouble. But he lived up to the hype. He knocked Volkanovski, of all people, out.
And everyone was making comparisons to Conor McGregor. You know, he's trying to treat this like he's going up against Jose Aldo.
He's following the McGregor blueprint.
He did the exact same thing and knocked him out clean. It was tough to see Volkanovski go down. But that brings us to the fan question. What's the next move for Alexander Volkanovski?
I think immediately he's got to take 6 to 9 months off. Just have a bit of a break from the sport.
But he wants to stay active.
I know you want to stay active, but I think being knocked out twice in 4 months, and it's not like it's a small knockout like a TKO. He got ferociously knocked out. You got to have a bit of a breather. Maybe you definitely deserve a rematch. If he doesn't get a rematch,
he called for a rematch straight away in the press conference and immediately after the fight, post getting knocked out with Joe Rogan. Ilia Topuria came and said, listen, he's old news now, and there's a lot of old heads in the division. It's time to clean it out. It's time to get some new faces in there. But he does respect him. He said, look, Volk is actually a genuine, nice guy, and that encourages him to give him the rematch. But look, a Volk-Ilia Topuria rematch in Spain makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense, and especially because Volkanovski is one of the greatest featherweight champions of all time, and this is his only featherweight loss ever. So you can't discount that. He does deserve a rematch. He's done the hard yards to earn whatever respect and favors he needs to get another shot at the title.
Well, listen, the stats weren't going in with him on his side because I think that's now championship fighters over 35. They're 22 losses and 1 win.
Yeah, the stat is if you're 35 years old in a championship fight below the weight of 170 pounds, there's 2 wins and 23 losses. And those 2 wins were both Tyron Woodley. So if you're over 35, you're pretty much fucked. That's it. Don't compete for a title. You saw Kobe Covington do it in late December last year.
Just look slower.
It's just an age thing. That happens to everybody. Father Time catches up. The only 2 people known to have beaten that, Tom Brady and LeBron James. They're the only 2 people ever. So if you're going to try and compete with them, you got to be one of the GOATs.
Fighting isn't the sport to take time off. That's why I can't see him being out that long. 9 months off is too long for Volk.
Yeah.
You need to be active in the UFC.
And especially, but
I say he takes literally 6 months off and they organise this rematch, whether it's in Spain or whether it's in Sydney, Australia, and he defends his belt here, like how Islam defended his title here against Volk in Perth. They do it in UFC Sydney down the line.
I understand that, but you don't want to come back too quickly and have a Tony Ferguson situation where he loses 7 out of his last 8 fights. He's struggling to make it into the octagon, and people are making fun of him because he's so old and he's just struggling to be there. You don't want him to look like that. What's happened to Tony Ferguson is sad. You don't want Volk to go down the same road, especially thinking that he has to prove something to somebody because he's had a rough couple finishes in the last 2 fights. Take your time, get right, prepare yourself best for the next fight so you get your confidence back, and maybe have another run at a title.
Okay, let's look at the NRL Rumour Round Up. We've been doing this every week. The NRL Vegas is around the corner. Round 1 is about to kick off. We're a couple of weeks away. So let's look at the Rumour Round Up. The first one off the bat, Luciano Leilua requests an early release from the Cowboys to join the Raiders immediately.
Well, that's very surprising because he just got to the Cowboys, but...
I mean, he's been there for 2 seasons now.
Yeah, but he had obviously that issue with the domestic violence charge that he was acquitted of.
Why'd you have to bring that up for?
Just because that's the reason he missed so much time at the Cowboys. They were probably dirty at.
You could have just said he had a charge. I'm just saying. You didn't have to bring up it.
I'm just saying.
He had some time off. I just call it time off.
He had some time off, which I think did play a factor in probably being disgruntled at the Cowboys. And he's looking for greener pastures. And I think the Raiders do need...
The Raiders need him.
Key player. They need some good forwards. I think Harold Weir-Naira is getting medically retired, so they need a good, strong second rower.
I think Luciano's a quality player. I mean, he was one of the shining lights in the Tigers. I know it's not that hard to be, especially where they were. And at the Cowboys, when he's on, he's one of the better second rows in the comp. Has he proven himself yet as a season-long quality second rower? No. The Raiders is the place to do it. So I'd like to see him join the Raiders. I think they need him. And, if the Cowboys aren't opposed to him going, then go for it. I don't see why not.
Match his salary. Go ahead.
Okay. The Broncos, they're all good now between Pat Carrigan and Adam Reynolds. They just issued their apology and they're on their way to Vegas now. They did try and make it a really big deal in the media that, the leaders of the team, they shouldn't be doing this. Was it needed to be under this much scrutiny? It's just a couple of mates having a push and shove?
I mean, for the captain and vice-captain to probably having a bit of a scuffle at a night out, not the best look, but let the boys play. You saw what happened with Wyden and Latrell Mitchell earlier. Sometimes it's just nothing. They're just drunk. Just let them be.
Now, Tavita Pangai Jr. on the Broncos. Tavita Pangai Jr. has signed with one of their feeder clubs in the Queensland Cup. The Broncos have said they want to wait and see how he plays in reserve grade before they sign him to a first-grade contract.
I mean, spare us the bullshit, guys. Okay, we understand. You probably organised it from when he was at the Bulldogs that he was going to leave the Dogs, have some time off in boxing, then sign for the Broncos.
It's like, are we all supposed to pretend like he wasn't at training a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
We're all supposed to pretend that, okay, he retired to go to boxing, and then all of a sudden the following year, it's just happened that quick. He fell out of love in the game, and now he's fallen back in love with the game.
That's why it's obvious.
I mean, you don't know you miss something till it's gone.
I mean, as well, the Broncos, they are his first club, and he does have prior relationships with the Broncos, so I would assume everyone at their club would want him to play. You got to think here, he played Origin last year, so he's a great.
I love Tavita Pangai Jr. I think he's an Origin-worthy player. I want to see him back playing rugby league. If he plays at the Broncos and plays a full season with Adam Reynolds directing him around, they're going to win the comp.
But why?
They're premiership favourites.
But why do the Broncos say, "Oh, we want to see how he plays in reserve"?
No, you don't. You'll sign him right now. You'd sign him right now for $700,000.
Why are you telling us this?
Yeah, it's just keeping up the.
You're pandering to the NRL media. I don't understand it. Just sign him. Just stop wasting time.
Well, this one. The Roosters are cursed with injuries because Dominic Young is ruled out of NRL Vegas. He won't be attending.
He sustained a neck injury.
Sustained a neck injury. They thought it was going to be serious. After scans, it's some ligament damage that may require surgery.
Still very serious. Anything near the neck is serious.
Big blow for the Roosters?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of your marquee signings. They're probably the best winger in the comp when you really think of it. Try-scoring ability. In the open field, he's one of the most dangerous players. He's fast, he's tall.
Well, according to Speed Guru Roger Fabry, he's the fastest man in the NRL.
Well, and that's why, especially when you're the Roosters, you probably needed a bit more spark out wide as well. They got Swiley moving to the centres. You have Daniel Tupou on the wing, who's also very injury-prone. They needed just some consistency on the wing.
He's very unlucky.
Very unlucky. And
that's been the death of the Roosters the last few years. If they've maintained their healthy squad, they go far into the finals. When they don't, and they can't string a team together, and they're dropping Sam Walker for no reason, they do struggle, right? When they can't have a consistent team 1 through 17 out there. So having Dom Young out early is going to be a blow for them. Hopefully he gets right and he's back as soon as possible.
And I was looking forward to seeing him playing. Either outside Manu or Suwali, it was going to be a great combination. So, I mean, I don't know how long he's going to be out for with the neck injury, but hopefully it's not too long.
Get well soon, Dom Young. Speaking of that, this happened in a trial, okay? Our trial's a waste of time. Why don't you just play your below top 30 in there, which the Bulldogs have. They've played a lot of young guns in there. The Melbourne Storm players, you trial out a lot of your fringe 30 players. Like, to sustain one of your marquee players getting injured in a trial, I understand you need tune-ups, but why are they putting so much importance into trials? It even been broadcasted like that. It's like NRL's officially back.
I mean, they're trying to put the NRL pre-season challenge in or pre-season competition. And look, some teams are putting more first graders in there. Some are just putting their, reserve graders in. But it really depends on the club. I know in the NFL, teams are starting to not play pre-season games properly. It just matters, I don't know, it depends on the coaching. Do you really want your players out there being susceptible to injury? I say no, because if you're going to have one of your marquee players like Dom Young injured, it's not worth it. And really, who cares about pre-season? A team can go 0-4 in the pre-season and then get off to the hottest start in the NRL. So it doesn't really matter. And if people, like I see some people on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, whatever, putting real weight into, the Bulldogs look really good. It's like, yeah, it's a pre-season game, mate.
When was the last time a pre-season team that probably demoralised other clubs during the preseason went on to win the premiership? Who's actually keeping track of what's their preseason record like, and does this impact their premiership?
I mean, it's good to maybe look at how certain players are working together, playing together, but ultimately it means shit. Like the Bulldogs, they've had a great preseason. Manly, they had a great preseason last year. How'd they go in the competition? Not too well. So it really doesn't matter. You got to hopefully not get off to a bad start like the Eels last year.
Don't sustain any injuries as well.
Don't get injuries. I mean, it's all about getting the tune-ups, but you probably should be doing that at training anyways. You should be game ready from training.
No, I agree. Okay, let's move our focus to the NBA All-Star Weekend. I'm going to be honest with you, Nick. We're avid NBA fans. We've been to the NBA Finals, went to the in-season tournament. I forgot the NBA All-Star Weekend was on.
It's a quick turnaround from actual in-season games to the All-Star game. It's like a day break. They had the Rising Stars Challenge. They have the Celebrity Game.
3-point challenge.
3-point challenge, a dunk contest. I used to be I tuned into every All-Star Weekend. I used to watch the dunk contests, but it's just slowly dwindled over time.
You would think with social media and where everything is in terms of content that All-Star Weekend would be a massive event across social media.
And I think people actually probably care about certain activities than they do more than the actual All-Star Game. The All-Star Game's just lost all credibility. No one cares about it anymore. I mean, the biggest thing coming out of this weekend was Steph Curry versus the WNBA player in a 3-point contest, and credit to her. She did really well.
She competed.
She
I
shot
didn't
from
expect
the NBA
that.
line with a smaller ball, but she still shot pretty well.
The ball's small?
It was a WNBA ball.
Okay, yeah.
But still, I'm not going to hit 26 points with her. She's not going to be able... She'd beat me, and she'd probably beat some NBA players as well, so credit to her. But looking at the NBA, they've gone back to the East versus Western Conference lineups, but it just seems dead. No one cares.
So they weren't drafting the players?
They weren't drafting the players like previous years. It's just back to the original voting. If you play in the East, you get voted to the East team.
That didn't last very long, did it?
Well, they try to revamp it to draw some interest because it is dead.
But you got to think, they tried the in-season tournament to give some interest to the regular season games. This was always supposed to be that break in the regular season before finals that piqued people's interest. It's not doing it anymore. What does the NBA need to do to bring relevancy back to the All-Star games?
The NBA needs to bring in a state of origin. They need to bring in something that's going to draw up natural competition between players and give them big rewards. The way to do that in the America, you're not going to draw it East and West and have people born on the Eastern side or the Western side.
Bloods v Crips, like that type of...
You can't do that because people are going to be born in certain places that are going to be overlapping. You got to do it as USA versus the world. There's a time now in the NBA where the last 4 MVPs, Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, and possibly Luka, they're the best players in the world, and they're all international players. So
you got to think, imagine a Team USA versus the rest of the world. I mean, they do it in tennis.
And this is where the NBA actually has the international talent to keep up with it. You can make the argument the best players in the NBA, Giannis, SGA, Luka Doncic, Embiid. I know Embiid's going to be American for the Olympics, but it still counts as a Cameroon player. And then Nikola Jokic, Giannis. You're going to have the best players up against it. Durant, LeBron, Jason Tatum. Like, let it happen while they can. They're in their prime. This is the best time to do it. And as a further incentive, say the winner gets $20 million each or something.
Put some money up for it. But imagine the fans tuning into that. The European fans would get around that extremely hard. American fans want to prove that they're the best at basketball. They want to be world champions. It's played in America. There's so much going into that. Why don't you do a USA versus the rest of the world around this time?
They've spoken
but you could
about
do
it as well.
You could do it as a 7-game series. You could do it as a 5-game series.
I'd probably go best of 5. I wouldn't go best of 7 because you need probably a little breather in between the season. You don't want them to go too hard. But even if it's just one game, even if it's just a singular game where they play each other, the bragging rights alone would, I think, draw the players to play harder and play a bit more, serious in the All-Star game. You might still...
Thing is, it'd have to be played in the US, where all the players are currently. You can't be taking one game in the US, one game in Europe.
It doesn't matter. They could play it wherever, as long as they actually get a game where the players want to play. They need to raise the intensity of the game, and a USA versus the world situation would make that happen.
When you say raise the intensity, do NBA players genuinely care for the All-Star break, for the in-season tournament? At the end of the day, they just want to either win a regular season award, like the MVP, you know what I mean, or go on and win a championship with their team. And that's why you see people with its load management preparing themselves for making the finals. They don't care about the All-Star game. They don't care about All-Star weekend. How are you going to incentivize
You got
players
to provide some sort of money.
Why would they care about USA versus the rest of the world?
You tell them the winning team gets $20 million.
Yeah, Nick, LeBron's a billionaire. Does he care about it? Does he care about a cool 10 mil?
Maybe he could become a bigger philanthropist. Just get more money. I know. Offer 100 mil. The amount of revenue
it's got to be about pride. Like, why does State of Origin work in Australia? Because you love your state. Queensland will die for Queensland. You got to love playing for America, which you question LeBron sometimes whether he'd want to be playing for America. Secondly, the European players, I know they'd love to be representing their countries, and you can make it about their countries, whether it's Luka, whether it's Nikola Jokic representing Serbia. So there's definitely some merit in doing it. I definitely think I don't have a direct line.
They've got to do something. They've got to do something to change the current situation, because currently it's not working, and they need something to reinvigorate it, and something like State of Origin would be that.
Well, let's go to our top 5, Nick. We do our top 5 every week. You can check us out on @Kairouz Bros on YouTube and @Jon-Bernard K on Instagram and TikTok. This week's top 5 is top 5 most infamous moments in sports history.
Starting with number 5, Luis Suarez biting the opposing player all 3 times. Whether it was the first time in 2010 to the Ajax player, whether it was the second time to Branislav Ivanovic in 2013 for Liverpool, or whether it was the third time to Chiellini in the World Cup, the guy just never learnt. The bloke never learnt not to bite. And when looking at Luis Suarez, he looks like a biter.
Yeah, he's got some chompers.
You think, though, after maybe the second time, he'd be reprimanded enough where you think, okay, Luis, you're not allowed to bite people on the field. Stop it.
I mean, if you're a star Premier League player and wherever he's been, you're getting that much money, you'd think you can bite whoever you want. Yeah, really. He's like, okay, mate, you're going to find me, I'll just bite the next person.
After the third bite, he went straight to Barcelona and became one of the best strikers in the world, won a golden boot. So, really, did he have to learn his lesson?
Yeah, and then he cried in the World Cup, so it's kind of like karma for the bites.
Yeah.
It was karma for the bites. Okay, number 4, Tonya Harding, putting a hit out on Nancy Kerrigan to make it an easier path for her to win a gold medal. There's been documentaries on this. There's been ESPN 30s for 30s. She's guilty. She's owned it. She was banned from every figure skating event after this. Probably one of the worst moments in competitive sports in Olympic history, to go out against your opponent, pretty much trying to break her legs so you can win a gold medal. Look, I love the competitive nature of it, but it's illegal.
Look, I don't want to say I wouldn't do the same in the situation, in the hunt for a gold medal.
She was charged criminally.
Yeah, I mean, look, she probably took it a step too far by trying to actually seriously injure an opponent, off the court as well, off the field. But I mean, in the pursuit of a gold medal, is all fair in love and war? I say yes.
As a competitor, I don't know how you can swallow it. You want to beat the best. But, if she got away with it, could she sleep at night?
Yes. I think
Obviously she would have. Yeah, she probably would have.
Okay, that takes us to number 3. Zinedine Zidane giving the most famous headbutt of all time. This was in the 2006 World Cup final.
Remember it like it was yesterday.
Gave the perfect headbutt straight to the chest of Marco Materazzi. And looking back on it, Materazzi had said something disparaging, or what he would like to do to Zidane's sister.
He said something about Zidane's sister, which, family's kind of off limits, but, mate, let the boys play. You're on the field.
And this is what caused Zidane to snap, headbutt him straight in the chest. And what made this even more infamous was this was Zidane's last game ever as a player. So not only was it a World Cup final, but it was Zidane's last game. What a way to finish your career.
Yeah, what a way to go out, Zinedine Zidane. You'll be remembered forever. Number 2 is Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield. This goes down in sports history as one of the most famous moments in boxing. Mike Tyson was complaining about Evander Holyfield's headbutting. Okay, nothing was done about it. He had a little bit of a nibble on his ears. Evander Holyfield complains about it to the referee. Okay, nothing really happens. I think he gets deducted 2 points.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Tyson said, no, this is not enough. Bites his ear off. Literally bites his ear off. The match gets stopped, as it would. Mike Tyson gets disqualified, and the rest is history. This has been played multiple times. Evander Holyfield has spoken about it on every occasion. He's forgiven Mike Tyson since. But, geez, if someone bit my ear off, that's almost permanent damage to your ear. I don't know if I would forgive.
Yeah, and Mike Tyson was fined $3 million for the biting. Again, biting does seem like one of the worst things to do to another human being. So I don't know why Mike Tyson thought to do this. Okay, he was headbutting you, but get over it.
That's the second biter on the list.
Yeah, that's the second biter on the list. And Mike Tyson, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. But everyone always remembers him for biting Evander Holyfield. I remember growing up as a kid. It was just a thing. You're watching.
Yeah, remember Mike Tyson has scary knockout power, intimidating stare down, and biting Evander Holyfield's ear.
But it's only beaten by number one, the Malice in the Palace, an NBA PR disaster. This resulted in an 86-game suspension for Ron Artest, a 30-game suspension for Steven Jackson, a 15-game suspension for Jermaine O'Neal. Pretty heavy suspensions. It all started when Ben Wallace was having a bit of a fight with the Pacers, but it somehow transitioned to the crowd when a crowd member threw a beer on Ron Artest. And Ron Artest just started throwing ham. He was throwing punches. He clocked a couple of crowd members in the mouth. He was loving it. But
this is before he was Meta World Peace.
This is before Meta World Peace.
Before he was all for peace. He was punching on with members of the crowd. Now, that's a no-go in any sport, okay? The crowd, they pay for their ticket. I understand he threw some alcohol. Regardless, you can't put their hands on him. And they were throwing hands. He was throwing hands at the crowd.
Unrelenting. You see Steven Jackson come over. He sees a crowd member going at Ron Artest. He's coming, he's throwing. And if you got to
back the boys.
You got to back the boys. So I respect that. 85-game suspension, though. That's pretty heavy. But if you look at current NBA players, Russell Westbrook's always going at crowd members.
He's mouthing off at the crowd. LeBron.
And some people think Russell Westbrook's going too far. But just remember, Russell Westbrook hasn't gone into the crowd and thrown a punch at someone's mouth.
Ron Artest punched a crowd member so Russell Westbrook could yell at a crowd member.
I mean, it all comes around full circle, but that is the most infamous moment in sports history and probably the NBA as well.
I got to agree. That is the top 5 most infamous moments in sport. I mean, you've probably seen them everywhere across social media. There's been 30 for 30s made up. Honourable mention, Allen Iverson breaking a chair on someone at a bowling alley. That's got to be up there.
He wasn't a professional athlete yet.
Wasn't as big, obviously. A few other ones in rugby league and in rugby.
There's been a few coward punches.
Yeah, a few bites as well. James Graham, if you want to include another biter. But yeah, make sure you're tuning in and subscribing to @Kairouz Bros on YouTube. That brings us to the UFC 300 main event. Okay, Dana White announced the UFC 300 main event right after UFC 298. Put it out on social media. He spoke about it in the press conference. A lot of UFC fans disappointed in the comments. Every comment section is bashing this decision. And it's not having a go at Alex Pereira. He's a champion. He's a double champ right now.
Well, for reference, he announced the main event is going to be Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill for the light heavyweight champion.
Now, after 6 months of build-up for UFC 300, I just don't feel like this lived up to the hype. The fans are saying this doesn't live up to the hype that Dana pitched it was going to be.
Well, that's where it is. The UFC 300 card as a whole is great. There's some great fights on there, quality fighters, but to the hype that Dana White was building. He was teasing for months, we're going to have one of the greatest cards ever. You're not going to believe who's on the prelims.
It is a great card.
It is a great card. But when you're teasing and holding out a main event for that long, teasing a big comeback from someone, you can't all of a sudden say, yeah, it's Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, a fight that could happen on UFC 301.
It doesn't feel like it has the headliner that UFC 200 had. You know what I mean? With Brock Lesnar returning, with Daniel Cormier and John Jones set to headline. I know they didn't, but it doesn't feel like it has that same headline aspect.
Yeah.
I was expecting McGregor. There was even rumors. Ariel Helwani reported that it was going to be Adesanya versus Dracus du Plessis. That didn't happen. That didn't eventuate. I can't also forget to mention that Dana White did shout out Leon Edwards, and he proposed him 3 fights. He proposed him 3 fights, and Leon Edwards said yes to all 3. He gave him credit. And Leon Edwards isn't on the main event.
Because Bilal Muhammad would have said yes. He's been asking for a fight for ages now. But ultimately, I say, you can't blame the fans for being angry. Dana White promised the world and did not deliver. So people's going at UFC, fans saying, oh, 300 is a great card. Why are you complaining for? They're complaining about what was promised by Dana White. And ultimately, again, if you look at the 300 card, it's great. It's just not what was promised.
Now, there are rumors circulating. There is room for one more fight on the card that's yet to be announced. So who knows? This could be Dana White swerving. I'd like to see a surprise announcement for one more edition, whether it's a non-title fight or not. Something's going to happen. It needs one more big surprise on the card.
What do you think it was? Do you think plans fell through for somebody?
Well, it could have been that they were trying to talk to Khabib. It could have been that, possibly Israel Adesanya wasn't ready. He's in camp right now and wasn't ready for the fight.
But I'm saying
they couldn't find a big enough fight for Leon Edwards.
The way Dana was talking was as if there had been a massive fight organised already. He already had someone that he was going to announce. Plans must have fell through for him to delay it this much and then settle for Pereira or Jamal Hill.
Anyway, I have faith in Dana. He'll put something.
He's
He'll
no
put
Triple
something
H.
on the card.
He's no Triple H.
It's still going to be a big card regardless, and we're hopefully going to be there covering the event live at UFC 300. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But looking at the other business in TKO Group, WWE Elimination Chamber is this weekend in Perth.
Can't wait. This will be one of the first Premier Live events in Australia.
Now, a lot of people have been yapping on Twitter saying Perth have gotten scammed. Now, with the likes of CM Punk not on there, Roman Reigns not going to be on there either. Cody Rhodes isn't scheduled to be in a match. Seth Rollins not in a match. The Rock, who's been on SmackDown, is not going to be there either. At least that's what we know so far. There's only been 4 announced matches. The male chamber, the female chamber, a tag team match, and Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax.
Yeah, look, on face value, it is very underwhelming.
It's a stadium show.
It's a very underwhelming show so far. I mean, you thought after the Rumble, The Rock maybe would make an appearance in a tag team match after the last altercation in Vegas.
Honestly, the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is the Grayson Waller effect with Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes.
Well, how can your Royal Rumble winner not have a match? Seth Rollins, I understand, is injured, so there's a bit of bad luck there. CM Punk's injured as well. Brock Lesnar's nowhere to be seen, so he's not at the pay-per-view.
Don't talk about him. We're not allowed to talk about him.
So it's just, if you're a Perth fan, it's still a WWE event, and they could still have surprises. You got to hold out hope. I mean, I've heard from so many people the Perth government's just giving, or the WA government's got $20 million ready to give to The Rock to make an appearance.
Well, let's talk about The Rock right now. No one expected Hollywood Rock to come back. We haven't seen Hollywood Rock since about 2003, 2004, right? So for him to come back and turn heel at a time like this, when he's a Hollywood megastar right now, it's unbelievable. He officially joined the bloodline, and when The Rock joins Roman Reigns, it's like Roman Reigns becomes solo. He becomes a second man right now. What are your thoughts on The Rock heel turn?
I love it. There's nothing I love more than a good heel turn. And I know it's probably being like a pessimist, like, oh, you like supporting a bad guy. No, I think The Rock is the most cool when he's spraying the crowd. Listen, fatty, shut your mouth. Like, you can't beat that. You don't want The Rock pandering to the crowd. Yeah, finally I'm back in Salt Lake City. No. I'm having a go at you because you booed The Rock. That's it. You've sold out to Cody Rhodes, to the Cody Crybaby movement. That's it. I've had enough. I love it. There's nothing better than heel Rock.
This version of The Rock is one of the best. He came out. He's paying homage to his old. He said it's no sing along with The Rock anymore, and he did that in 2003 as well. And it's good to see him back. I don't know where this storyline's going to go. That's the best part about it. You don't know where this bloodline story is going to go. Is he still going to go after Roman Reigns? Are they setting up for WrestleMania 41? Is he going to have a run-in with Cody Rhodes? Is he going to cost Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania? So many questions to be asked.
The storytelling is a bit inconsistent. The Rock doesn't know Cody Rhodes won the Rumble. But in saying that, the more featured The Rock is on television, the better the product is. No matter how or what way it's there, as long as he's there, it's better.
I feel like there's also going to be this power struggle now between Triple H and The Rock. Triple H running the show, The Rock being an executive now and aligning himself with the bloodline. Who knows what's going to happen? But we'll have some answers at UFC Perth, and we'll be covering that on the ground. We're going to be we'll be covering that at Elimination Chamber Perth. It's going to be massive. I want to see what happens. If we hear If You Smell in Perth, I'll go nuts. To see The Rock live and Hill Rock live, a part of the bloodline, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, I can't wait. See you Saturday or Sunday in Perth.
It'll be Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night. Can't wait.
Yeah, 5 a.m. Eastern time in America.
Hey.
So finally, you guys get the shit times.
Yeah.
Because
we get one pay-per-view a year. Let us have it.
Yeah, let us enjoy a pay-per-view. But that's all for prime time today. I know we're at an airport lounge, but thank you for bearing with us. We're taking this show on the road, so make sure you're subscribed at the Kairouz Bros. Thank you. Back to you in the studio, Nick.